I feel that brainwave entrainment and light and sound does not get the respect that it deserves. Yeah, we've had the psychedelic, the hippies using it for tripping out. And there are all the other lucid dreaming and esoterical things that are done with it, snake oil. Now it's being recognized as a legitimate treatment, and it can be used to treat dementia, can be used to treat ADHD, depression. It can be used to reduce pain, reduce swelling and bleeding during dental procedures and minor operations. There's a ton of other clinical uses for it.
This time on the Plutopia podcast, John interviews hypnotist and brainwave entrainment specialist Joe Verona. They discuss neurohacking, hypnotism, psychedelic theory, and the many uses for brainwave entrainment.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Plutopia podcast. Today's episode, we're missing Scoop. He couldn't be available today, but my guest today is Joe Verona. Joe is a certified professional hypnotist. He specializes in brainwave entrainment and biofeedback. He was kind of like the original neurohacker. He's explored hypnosis, meditation, energy practices, lucid dreaming, and out-of-body experience, as well as clinical uses for brainwave entrainment. Joe has been on a mission to not only learn all there is to know about brainwave entrainment, but also to encourage fresh research and product development. And that, question about whether somebody's interesting, that's very interesting, all of that. And I'm particularly interested in it. In reading that, it really hit me. It hadn't hit me before that you were talking about energy practices. And I've done some of those things like chi practices and that sort of thing. But what I really wanted to talk to you about today is mainly brainwave entrainment. How does it work?
Well, it works on the frequency following response. Everything that we sense in the outside world, whether it be a sound, light, a touch, or even a taste, gets converted to an electrical signal to be processed by the brain. What they found shortly after they discovered what a brainwave was, that if you hold a particular frequency, so the brain works on particular frequency bands. So if you're concentrating hard on a problem or a subject, your brain will resonate at a certain rhythm. Obviously, when you go to sleep, your brain rhythms slow down, and it's a very different frequency than when you're concentrating. So if you match that frequency with the brainwave frequency with an external trigger, such as a sound or a light flicker, that frequency gets elevated. And when that happens for a period of time, they say roughly about 6 minutes, the brain becomes entrained. It follows that response, that frequency. So if I'm listening to a music that has an upbeat rhythm to it, my beta rhythms are going to become elevated and I'm going to be energized. With brainwave entrainment, what we do is we entrain the brain to a frequency that you might be in at the time, usually in beta, and then lead that frequency into other states of consciousness, such as meditation or even sleep. So kind of a simplistic definition, but does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and one of the things that actually the way that you and I got connected was through a discussion or light and sound technology, particularly, which is a kind of technology that you find in several different machines that are built to give you a light flicker and a sound flicker that are somewhat synchronized. Correct?
Right. And these devices have been around for a long time. Back in the 70s, they had such devices, and without the internet, it was kind of a closed group. The people that were interested in it were hippie psychedelic, wanting it to, enhance their psychedelic experience. And the only way to get it, there was like underground publications like Mega Brain and AVS Journal, and there are a few cassette programs that you could purchase, like Holosync or Robert Monroe had the Gateway Experience. But that was about it. And then the internet came around, and it just exploded. I got involved with a company called Transparent that developed software to create this type of music and light flickers. And then it just exploded. YouTube just went crazy. Hundreds of thousands of binaural beat session videos. Claim to do everything under the sun.
YouTube is full of those.
Yeah, you could get sessions to make you grow taller, or read a book without having to open up the cover. Just kind of crazy things. So in a way, it was good because it got the word out, but it also was confusing. And now, a lot of people think of it as snake oil. And one of the things that disturbs me, one of my peeves is the term binaural beat. Everybody, if you have them listen to a session or whatever, they say, "Oh, that's a binaural beat," which is not entirely true. Binaural beats are formed when one tone at a steady frequency is produced to one ear, and a separate tone to the other ear with a pitch differential. And inside the brain, the mind will mix these two tones, and through noise cancellation, you get a beat equal to the difference in tone between the two ears. The problem is the beat wave depth is very low, like 3 decibels, should just, short of a whisper. And it's not strong enough to actually cause entrainment. So the brain doesn't really follow a rhythm to lock onto. But it is very hypnotic. It requires both hemispheres of the brain to work together, which promotes hemispheric synchronization. And it is proven to activate more areas of the brain simultaneously, but it does not entrain. Binaural beats are impossible above 30 hertz. You just hear 2 separate tones in each ear. So if you see a session that says a 40 hertz gamma binaural beat, it's not a binaural beat. Skeptics will use this, say, "Oh, well, binaural beats are not effective." Well, they're not effective at entraining. That's true. It's good for other uses, but there's also other technologies involved: isochronic tones, monaural beats, light flickers, modulated sound, that get the job done much better, the job of entraining. And like 99% of all sessions do not use binaural beats. They're using some other kind of technology.
Yeah, we're talking about light and sound. Can you entrain with sound alone? Is there a type of sound that will do that?
Yes, yeah, you can entrain by sound alone. With the binaural beat, the wave depth is going to be too faint for the brain to pick up on. But an isochronic tone, which is nothing but a tone that's turned on and off rapidly, or you could do the same thing with any sound. You could take a piece of music and turn it on and off, specifically to a frequency, and also a monaural beat, which is the same as a binaural beat, but both tones are presented to each ear. Those can entrain the brain. Anything can entrain the brain. The light flickers, the occipital lobe of the brain is much bigger than the auditory portion of the brain. So you're stimulating a larger portion of the brain. So light flickers can be more effective, but also light flickers can cause seizures. So they're not recommended in all cases. And the new technology, the new trend now, they're getting into these haptic, these vests that are used for gaming. So like if you're in a War of the Worlds or whatever, and you get shot in the game, you actually feel it. Well, with entrainment, we're developing new ways now where you could wear one of these vests and the pulsing of the tones will pulse the vest, and this tactile stimulation will also entrain the brain. So this is very exciting in the clinical use for ADHD, for example. So if I stimulate brain waves in the beta region, you're going to get a sharper focus and even cognition increase. So ADHD people have trouble focusing. So it's not conducive to wear earphones and light goggles while you're in class listening to a lecture. But you can wear one of these vests underneath your clothes, and this will provide the beta stimulation to help you keep focused.
So I mentioned earlier that you are a neurohacker. Can you define that term for people who may wonder what a neurohacker actually is?
Well, a neurohacker, kind of a subspecies of biohacking, is just hacking the wetware of your brain, your mental computer. So when I got into this, it was so cool. I downloaded a very basic alpha and theta binaural beat session, and it was just blew me away how it affected my mind. So I got into it more and more, and started exploring biofeedback devices, Gsr devices that would measure your stress levels according to the moisture in your skin. And also EEGs became affordable. So you could actually see what effect these soundtracks or these light tracks are actually having on your brain and on your body. So it was just a fun hobby of mine to create a light and sound session, use it for a period of time, and see what it does to you.
Were you already a hypnotist at the time? Before you started this?
No, I was not. I got into it as a meditation aid. I watched a show on PBS on Taoism by Wayne Dwyer, I think it was, his take on the Tao Te Ching. So it really struck home with me. So I went online and I, checked all the information about Taoism, and all the discussion was on Taoist alchemy. That was the big thing. And with Taoist alchemy, the number one thing is you have to do meditation, seated meditation. Well, I couldn't do that. Every time I tried to quiet my mind down, I would be thinking of the last song that I heard in my head. Whether I liked it or not, it just kept going and playing over and over again. So I couldn't empty my mind. I found this track online, and when I listened to it, it not only took away that song that's been playing in my head all day, but it also took me deeper into meditation and into a trance-like state. As I learned more and more about it, a company called Transparent Corp that developed the software was like the number one provider of information on the net. So I got involved with them and eventually became employed with them. And a lot of our customers were hypnotists that use brainwave entrainment to get people into a hypnotic trance and provide introduce subconscious programming. So that's when I became certified in hypnotism, and we developed a lot of features and sessions that are very helpful for hypnotists for that reason.
My first experience with light and sound technology was when I had a company early 90s called Fringeware, and we somehow discovered a company called Cinetic Systems,
Hmm.
which made a light and sound machine. And we started reselling those. And I started using them quite a bit myself. I think they even sent me a PC card at one time to evaluate. I was like a co-editor of the Millennium Whole Earth catalog, and we were doing I was responsible for a section on consciousness, and we did a review of that PC card. So I was uh, I was amazed at the kinds of experiences I was having. And of course, Cinetics later became MindPlace, which is still around. They had a little problem with the FDA, as I recall, at some point, and that seems to have been fixed since then.
Well, I don't think it's fixed. I think the FDA, especially in light of this pandemic and all the goings on with that, it's kind of relaxed now that they're not on their witch hunt for the small guys that are, producing light and sound machines or whatnot. And the big thing was, well, they couldn't make any kind of medical claim. So even though a light and sound machine is great for ADHD, you just can't say, well, this is good for ADHD or it cures ADHD, treats ADHD. You'd have to rephrase it to like, this is good for focus or something like that. So.
Which it is, of course. So, and you mentioned earlier the problem of with people who have seizure disorders, and I know my partner was in Europe, and he was demoing the Cinetics machines, and he demoed it with one person who had a seizure on the spot, and he thought they were going to throw him in jail. And we learned then that we really needed to alert people to that potential problem and even get them to sign a waiver if we were going to do a demo. Is that very common, the seizure response?
It's not real common. I remember an episode, I think it was back in the 80s when Pokemon aired an episode that had a strobing and it sent a bunch of kids to the hospital. If you're prone to seizures, just don't use the light flashing. I've never heard of anybody going into a seizure using, sound or tactile stimulation. There's also other ways. If you offset the light, so instead of having the LEDs right in front of your eyes, if you offset it to the peripheral part of your vision, you're less prone to have a seizure. But it's just a trade-off. If your chances of getting a seizure is more risky than the benefit that you're going to get from it, then just don't do it.
Yeah.
Just use the sound.
I have had some people question in talking about the machine. Of course, I'm an advocate. I'm a proponent of light and sound technology, and they have been curious about how you actually know that it works. Have there been studies with the machines that show that it really does sustain the specific frequency that is claimed for like the particular session?
Well, sure. You can get your own EEG. It's been proven throughout the ages that a light and sound entrainment does occur. Back when I got into it, it was like a single channel EEG was $2,000, and then it cost you another $1,000 for the software. Now you can buy an EEG for $200. With all the software and the bells and whistles that go with it. A GSR device, a galvanic skin response that measures stress level indirectly through the moisture in your skin. It can give you feedback on, if you're doing a light and sound session and you're GSR levels go down, it's just a direct response that what you're doing is calming your nerves. Heart rate variability, same thing. So there are EEGs and biometric devices. Even your smartwatch, can detect physiological changes in your body, a heart rate, blood pressure, that's being changed as a result of using these devices. So there's also a questionnaire, I think the Sonnen Trance Scale questionnaire that is so that you can internally judge how deep of a trance, how deep in meditation you are. So you can chart and journalize, what kind of experience you're having with these devices.
I'm looking that up. How's that spelled? Sonnen.
Sunnen.
Okay. There we go.
Yeah, it's a quite easy, and you can shorten it down. You maybe take, I think there's 10 subscales or something, 5 or 10 subscales. You could take one question from each of those subscales.
I found the here's the form for that.
That's
interesting.
That's a scoring. That's a scorecard there. But yeah, it has its subscales, and it just asks you questions on your experience, and at the end you tally up a score, and it's a good way for you to keep track of what sessions you're doing and what kind of effect it's going to have on you.
Is it pretty consistent from one person to another, the response, or do some people respond better than others?
It's completely off the chart. It's some people. You can group them, most people, and then there's some people. Well, for instance, people that are depressed or people that have ADHD, PTSD tend to have slower brainwaves. While they're awake, they're exhibiting a lot of theta and delta brainwaves, which are normally found in sleep. These kind of people, if they listen to a beta program that's supposed to be energizing and increase focus, this kind of overloads their brain and puts them to sleep. So it's different for everybody slightly, but can be a huge difference depending on if you have a mental disorder.
Oh, that's very interesting. I have also wondered whether if a session was poorly constructed, whether it could actually be harmful. Do you have to be concerned about the sessions you're using, about whether they're correctly made, I guess?
Yeah, you do have to use sessions from a respectable source, somebody that knows what they're doing. Is it harmful? I wouldn't use the word harmful. If you do, there are some side effects from using brainwave entrainment, but if anything like that occurs, you just don't use it anymore and it goes away. Or there's ways to counteract it. One way, as I mentioned before, people with ADHD or depression, they have an abundance of slow wave brainwaves. So if you compound that by entraining to more slow wave entrainment, which a lot of people are, everybody's looking for the deep experience, that out of body, hypnotic state where you're zoned out, but body asleep, mind awake state. If you're depressed or have ADHD, that's just going to compound your depression or your ADHD. So that part can be harmful. Also, depending on higher brainwaves, if you use a square wave isochronic tone, something very sharp, a click was a prime example. It sparks harmonics in the brain. So if I'm using a square wave light flash or tone at 10 hertz, it can also be in training brainwaves at 20 hertz. and then maybe again at 30 hertz, which can cause anxiety. Any entrainment above 22 to 30 hertz can spark anxiety and spark a panic attack. So you have to be careful. If you're prone to panic attacks, you don't want to be using a session that people don't know, that's designed by somebody that is not cognizant of that.
Well, I know that you've created quite a few sessions yourself. In fact, I've been using some of them. What goes into the creation of one of those sessions? How do you actually put those together?
Well, like Transparent had a very nice program suite, and Transparent, the owner of Transparent got convinced by a marketing guru that the future is not providing software to create this kind of music. The future is selling the milk, not the cow. So they went into business as Brain FM, selling sessions, audio sessions, and dropped the software end of the business, which really pissed a lot of people off. Their software ran upwards of $700, and now it's no good anymore. But you can create these sessions using a digital audio workstation. It's a little bit more involved, a little bit more of a learning curve, because digital audio workstations are designed to, create music and sound effects, not brainwave entrainment. And you can also, the light encoding is actually an ultrasonic sound. So it's right at the level of like around 20,000 hertz of the range of human hearing. But with a digital audio workstation, I can shape this sound into light flickers, and with now the newer technology, spectrostrobe, different colors. So if you want to create this kind of, and there's new software being developed now. Right now, it's in the form of a plugin to use on a digital audio workstation, but it's on the drawing board to turn it into a standalone software to make it.
I know that the particular machine I use is the Casina from MindPlace, that has that can decode spectrostrobe. Is spectrostrobe more of a standard that's widely available in other machines as well?
No, spectrostrobe, I believe, is strictly MindPlace. I don't know of any other device that uses spectrostrobe. And it's a continuation of the audio strobe, the older technology, which was just a two-channel analog. Whereas the spectrostrobe is a 6-channel. Where you have complete control over not just one color, but red, green, and blue, and also each eye separately. So there are entraining modes where you might want to entrain one side of the brain at a different rate than the other side of the brain. With the older audio strobe technology, this wasn't possible, or was very difficult to do. But with spectrostrobe, with ADHD and depression, typically, and it's actually the FDA has approved as a diagnostic tool. If you look at an EEG of somebody that has ADHD, they're going to have a lot of activity in the right side of the brain, the creative, mind-wandering side of the brain, and the left side of the brain has very low alpha and maybe even a theta rhythms, which is not normal when you take a look at the masses. So the way you would correct that is to boost the right side of the brain, which would be through the left or the right eye or the right ear, the brain is cross-wired with beta frequencies, and then calm down the right side of the brain with the left ear with alpha or even theta rhythms. So that wasn't possible with audio strobe, and audio strobe was pretty much single color. Now with the spectrostrobe, with red, green, and blue, you can concoct any color under the sky, which also is bring about color healing. We do know that blue and green color light produces the changes over melatonin to serotonin, waking you up and providing a mood boost. And at night, when you're trying to go to sleep, you would not want to put blue or green into your sessions. You'd want to use more red. If you're prone to seizures, red color might not be for you. The color red sparks more seizures than other colors, and there's more things being found out. I try to keep an open mind to that. Color therapy and whatnot, we just don't know a whole lot about it now, but why wait until they prove it right or wrong? If you have the device, keep an open mind and try it out. What the heck?
Yeah, learn as you go.
Mm-hmm.
So when I see a session and it says, let's say it says it's an 8 hertz session, is that applicable to both the light and the sound? Are they synchronized at the same wavelength persistently?
Yes, typically they are. There are instances where you might want to offset, maybe for dissociation. If you offset the sound entrainment to the light entrainment by a very little bit, maybe a half hertz or maybe 1 hertz at the most, it confuses the brain. It doesn't know what to think of it, so it shuts down, which is a good thing, and people with overactive minds and things like that. Typically, though, they are synced. Sometimes you might want to offset it just by the wavelength. When the light portion is at its strongest, the sound portion is at its weakest. That also is a dissociation technique. And then there's also times where you might want to entrain 2 or more frequencies in the brain simultaneously. So I might have a flickering light at 40 hertz, while at the same time listening to a tone at 5 or 6 hertz. So that's another big protocol. When they tested the EEGs of Taoist monks doing extraordinary feats, a tummo, melting snow around them, whatever, they're finding that these monks have a lot of slow wave activity, like theta or even delta, found in deep meditation, while simultaneously having very fast gamma rhythms. So a lot of people are now trying to, acquire these superhuman feats by using the casino or such devices to mimic that brainwave state, very, very low deep meditation, while simultaneously having gamma spikes and whatnot. Anna Weiss, back in the 80s, developed the mind mirror, and she outlined an awakened mind graph of what awakened people, what their brain waves look like, and to use brainwave entrainment to mimic that brainwave state. And it's very fun to try to mimic that. And it's basically her outline was all brainwaves are present in your brain at all times. So even when you're sleeping, you're going to have beta waves. Even while you're concentrating on a math problem, you're going to have some theta and delta. But these waves in an awakened mind are more balanced, and they tend to have more slower activity with simultaneous beta and gamma at the same time.
I have myself used the mind machine as an sort of adjunct to meditation. It's not really clear to me whether it's supporting my meditation or my meditation is supporting my response to the machine. How does the machine work with, let's say you're a seasoned meditator and you use it? Do you think of it as using the machine as getting to the meditative state or maybe helping to sustain it?
It can be both. Some people criticize brainwave entrainment as training wheels, and for beginners, it's great. You don't know what it feels like to be in a deep meditative state. Using brainwave entrainment, it will get you there quicker, and like, wow, okay, so that's what it's like. It also speeds the process up, and traditional meditation practice, it could take 10, 30 years, to get proficient at it. Whereas we're using a light and sound device, you can master meditation in a month. Well, I shouldn't say master. You could never really master it, but become very proficient. So what would take you 10 years doing a traditional meditation program can take you a couple months using a light and sound machine.
If somebody asked me about, would it be better to be pretty passive, and let the brain machine sort of guide you into the meditation, or to do a more active meditation? In my case, I meditate and I using the light and sound machine, but I don't think of the light and sound machine as making the meditation happen. It's just that it seems to like facilitate sustaining it more than that.
A mental activity, if you're using a guided meditation where they're prompting you to visualize, or you're listening to instruction on, gratitude or whatever, this requires mental effort, which is beta. If you want to get into deeper, deep alpha, theta states, which is the deep meditation, you've got to turn that part of your mind off. So using a guided meditation, you're only going to get into alpha rhythms. If you want to get into something really deep, you've got to turn the analytical part of your mind off, and then let the subconscious mind take over. So the best way, well, you can use the light and sound device while you're in the alpha stage to repeat self-affirmations, to listen to a guided meditation and whatnot. But then once you get to a certain point, you just want to zone out and, turn your analytical mind off and just listen to the sound and watch the lights. Your mind is going to become entrained no matter what you do. As long as you're hearing it, as long as the light is hitting your retina, those pulses are affecting your brain waves. There is what's called a guardian response, where if you're thinking, it's just pretty much the opposite of, if you don't, you think it's going to work, it's not going to work. I don't care if you take a pill, like, oh, this isn't going to do anything. When you take it, it's probably not going to work. So that comes into play a little bit. But basically, you just want to zone out when you want to get into those deep meditative states. If you want to do things like lucid dreaming and out-of-body experience, just sit back, listen to the sound, enjoy the light show, live in the moment, don't let your mind wander off to wherever. Just stay present and listen to it and see where it takes you.
Yeah, I'm more likely to practice a form of meditation called shikantaza. Are you familiar with shikantaza?
I'm not.
It's in Zen Buddhism. There's a form of meditation that's really just sitting. You're just sitting, and you're not trying to do anything. You're just sitting with the environment you're in, and part of the environment could be light and sound.
Sure.
So you're open to that experience, and that's just the experience.
Right. To the experienced meditator, brainwave entrainment. For one thing, you won't need a meditation bell. It's your timer. So if you want to meditate for a half hour, you put a half an hour session on. It gives you it eliminates distractions, especially the casino with the deep vision glasses that cover your entire eyes field of vision. It puts you in your whole new world. You put headphones on, you put these glasses on. I don't care if you're in a subway station, you're in your own little world, and you could take off to wherever you want to go for that 15 or 30 minutes, whatever session that you set it on. Also, for the experienced meditator, you can control the depth of how deep you want to go. Sometimes if I'm on my lunch break and I want to meditate for 15 minutes, I don't want to get really zoned out and come back to work all dazed and confused and sluggish and want to go home, go to bed. Maybe I just want a light meditation, or before I go to bed, maybe I want to get into a real deep meditation so that my brain waves are going to be lower to make it easier for me to fall asleep.
So you've mentioned out-of-body experience. What exactly are you describing there? What is that like? How does that relate to what we're talking about?
Well, out-of-body experience, I've taken Michael Raduga's course a while back, and I was never able to actually do the out-of-body experience that they describe, get up and walk around and, travel to different parts of the world or whatever. But it closely resembles lucid dreaming, and I imagine it has something to do with it, where you're actually controlling your dreams. Lucid dreaming, I feel, is a natural side effect of using brainwave entrainment, light and sound. It trains you to get to that threshold and walk the tightrope between sleep and wakefulness. So when you find that line, you can use either the sound or the flashing light as a handrail to kind of pull you back or to let you go further back into it. So once you find this line between being asleep and being awake, you can now venture into dreamland just far enough to keep a little bit of your awareness and control your dreams. And then if you find yourself falling too far asleep, you can keep a hold of that light flashing and pull yourself back up into it. The out-of-body experience takes it a step further, where Michael Raduga's a protocol, had you vibrating. You'd lay in the bed and you would concentrate on vibrating, and you're just going to vibrate yourself out of your body and float above your body, and then you could just get up and walk around and be like you're completely awake, but you're moving outside your body. You could travel the world or whatever. I have not been able to reach that state, but I've talked to people that have, and hey, more power to them. And maybe this is something that we just don't understand yet. There's a lot about the brain and particularly the mind that we don't understand, and maybe these people have something, and once we learn more about it, it would put the travel industry out of business. So, if I want to go to Hawaii, I just go to bed and travel out of my body and go to Hawaii.
To people who die and come back, describe leaving their body when they're technically dead. So who knows? I mean, I guess the question is, what leaves the body?
Sure. And, there we get into deep subjects of, the mind, the difference between the brain and the mind, and the body and the soul. Um, so there's a lot we don't know about the human consciousness. So I keep an open mind to this kind of stuff. When I worked at Transparent, they took a clinical, strictly clinical approach to brainwave entrainment. So it became a means to an end. Instead of an adventure where, hey, I'm going to put this session on and let's see where it takes me. It's like, well, now you're going to use this session, and then in 30 days, you're going to be better. You're going to be calmer. Your blood pressure is going to go down. Your ADHD is going to be better. So it kind of took the adventure aspect out of it. I understand he wanted to be more credible. If you start talking out of body experience, there are a lot of skeptics and whatnot are just going to cough at you, and it's new age snake oil. So I keep an open mind to it. Why not? It's not going to hurt. It's actually good for you. No matter what kind of brainwave entrainment that you do, it increases blood flow to the brain. It promotes hemispheric synchronization, getting more areas of the brain working together in harmony. Lowers blood pressure, heart rate. So there's, just by using it for out-of-body experience, you're going to experience other clinical health benefits.
Wow. Yeah. I've noticed that there are some sessions that people have programmed that are supposed to be sort of mimetic of psychedelic experience. Are you aware of any research or any investigation of like comparisons of the brainwave entrainment experience with psychedelic experience?
Oh yeah. Which I was alluding to at the beginning of our conversation. Brainwave entrainment got its start in psychedelic. The hippies, doing LSD and mushrooms, and like, hey, let's put these flashing lights on and whatnot, and and you trip out. Now, psychedelics is actually an FDA approved treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder. There are devices, Sound Self, which is a program which uses the casino. You can either use the casino spectrostrobe or the Lumina from MindPlace, or you could use a VR device, and it uses your voice. So while you're wearing the goggles and listening to the sounds through the SoundServe device, it uses your own voice to resonate and provide a psychedelic experience, which is used in these psychedelic therapies. Ketamine and psilocybin is actually an FDA approved drug used to, and you can go to a doctor and get LSD. So they're actually going through the FDA process of getting these devices FDA approved to be used in these psychedelic therapies. So it comes full circle. So we started out the hippies dropping acid and using light and sound to trip out. Now we're using it as a more therapeutic, but still you're dropping acid and using light and sound to trip out.
What are the, I guess you'd say, myths or misconceptions about this technology?
Well, you can't grow taller by listening to it. You can't read a book without opening the cover. But there is a certain amount of truth. If you're using a light and sound machine, they have pineal gland sessions and whole mind sessions that get more areas of the brain working simultaneously. Well, that's that's very much real. Now, what you do with it, are you going to become psychic? Who knows? Let me think. What other? We touched upon the binaural beat thing. That's really big. You go on YouTube and it might not even be a binaural beat, but you're not going to get entrained. There's no such thing as a 40 beat, a 40 hertz binaural beat. What else? Maybe you can think of some more.
Well, that mentioning 40 hertz reminds me that there's been some discussion lately of 40 hertz, exposure to 40 hertz being better for Alzheimer's. Is there research to support that you're aware of?
Oh, absolutely. That's the other big thing. It's MIT did a study. They induced dementia on a bunch of rats and then subjected them to a 40 hertz red light flicker for an hour a day. And after a month of that, they examined their brains and found out that the beta amylase enzyme, which is the destructive enzyme that causes dementia, had been reduced in the rats and that have been subjected to this 40 hertz flicker, and actually can reverse the effects of dementia. So studies are being conducted right now on humans. I don't know exactly how they do it, because to get the beta amylase, you need the person has to be dead to remove part of their brain. But they are doing clinical trials right now using 40 hertz red light flicker to treat dementia. And there we go back again. Well, do you want to wait 4 or 5 years for this study to find conclusive evidence, or do you want to start using it now? There's no harm in it. It's not going to hurt you. So the technology is here. You can get it in your hands. If you know somebody that is has dementia, why not? There's no other alternative. So yeah, that's another big thing where I feel that brainwave entrainment and light and sound does not get the respect that it deserves. Yeah, we've had the psychedelic, the hippies using it for tripping out. And there are all the other lucid dreaming and esoterical things that are done with it, snake oil. Now it's being recognized as a legitimate treatment, and it can be used to treat dementia. It can be used to treat ADHD, depression. It can be used to reduce pain, reduce swelling and bleeding during dental procedures and minor operations. There's a ton of other clinical uses for it. Of course, the Western culture, they would rather take a pill. Back in the past, it was like, well, what, I have to put this on and listen to music for an hour. No, I'd rather just take a pill and go to work. But I think we're getting away from that now. I think there's a mistrust of bureaucratic medical big pharmacy. And people are looking for alternative ways. That the research that's being conducted in the past, the research on brainwave entrainment is very old. The bulk of it was done when it was first discovered, very old in the 50s and 60s. The later research was mainly done by people that have an interest in, like if Mindplace, Transparent conducted their own research. to boost their own interest. So of course, if I'm funding a study, I want my product to look good. It's
Yeah, exactly.
whatnot. So
Might be less
now
objective.
yeah, so now it's being more subjective, and it's being looked at seriously through legitimate sources, MIT, University of Chicago, Northwestern University in Chicago is conducting sleep research, brainwave entrainment on sleep patterns. So it's now being taken more serious, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
The sort of, I guess, what would you call them? Goggles that you use, the frames that you use for light and sound. Used to be that you had to kind of close your eyes and just let the light come through your eyelids, but now you have these new Gonz frames that have a material over them so that you can do a meditation with your eyes open. And this is just a personal question for me. I haven't got clear whether it's better to have my eyes open or closed when I'm using those frames. Sometimes I use the frames with my eyes closed, and I'm not sure that it's that radically different. Do you think those make a difference?
Sure they do. When your eyes are open, it favors some of the faster beta rhythms. Okay, when you close your eyes, you instantly increase more alpha rhythms. So your brainwaves instantly get lowered when you close your eyes. So if you're looking to calm down, go to sleep, go into a deep trance, then you want to close your eyes. Opening your eyes favors more faster rhythms, beta. So if you're looking to increase cognition, sharpen focus, you're using it for the 40 hertz gamma for dementia, then the open eyes would be better. Conversely, open eyes can induce what's called the Gonz field effect, which is a sensory deprivation state. Can cause hallucinations and altered forms of consciousness. So if your eyes are open and you're seeing just a blank field of light, it confuses their brain like, hey, what is this? Your eyes are open, but there's nothing there. And it starts creating its own reality. So with the open eyes, you can, this used to be done in the past with ping pong balls. You used to cut ping pong balls in half, put them over your eyes. That's something people, if you don't have a light and sound machine, you can do this at home. Just cut ping pong balls in half and put them over your eyes and keep your eyes open. Listen to some white noise or pink noise. If you can, use a flotation take, anything you can do to reduce any kind of stimulation, you can produce this Gonz field effect and hallucinate and go to different worlds, and whatever. Also, the open eye, you might want to start a session with your eyes open, more beta rhythms, and then as you get into a deeper state, allow your eyes to close, which can be very effective. The light show, the entertainment, I didn't touch upon that. It's fun to use. I mean, it's when you're listening to music, to have a light show to go along with it. When you use the open eye glasses, you can create a different light show just simply by adjusting, how open your eyes are. If you open them just a little tiny bit, you can kind of control how the flickers are reaching your retina. You keep one eye open, one eye closed. So that, that we're getting back to the hemispheric balancing thing. So if I close my right eye, it's going to put stimulation to my left brain. So there's a lot of things that can be done with the open eye glasses. You can use them open or closed. The closed eye glasses do put the LEDs closer to your eyes and are calibrated to be used through your eyelids. So obviously you got to cut down on the red light and boost up on the blue and the greens. So they both have their uses.
That's great. I really appreciate you joining me today. We're pretty close to the end of our hour now. I think one other thing that I wanted to ask you about, we mentioned it kind of at the beginning about energy. Is there an effect on, I guess, energy states? Like, I mean, when you mention energy, are you thinking in terms of like what the Chinese will call qi, just the kind of like, not particularly, barely perceptible energy levels within the body and that sort of thing? They talk about like moving energy around and that sort of thing.
Sure. Brainwave entrainment can help you achieve an open state, a more suggestible state where you might not notice energy throughout the body. The Schumann resonance, 7.83 hertz, the same frequency as the Earth's magnetic field, produces more of these otherworldly esoteric experiences than any other. It also increases the blood flow to the brain more than any other frequency. So a lot of these energy practices, the sessions that I have constructed, rely heavily on the Schumann resonance, and also the harmonics of the Schumann resonance seems to have the same effect. And also the gamma aspect. Gamma is relatively new to brainwave entrainment. These fast flicker rates weren't really effective with the older machines, but now with the new digital machines, you get a much more clear flash at these faster rates. Gamma seems to be the interpreter of the brain. So different areas of the brain operate at different frequencies and don't really talk to each other, because the more primitive parts of the brain are very slow delta frequencies. The newer parts of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, is beta frequencies, and it's like they're two different countries. They don't really talk to each other. But when you introduce gamma into the equation, gamma seems to get these two areas of the brain connected. So when a musician is playing a musical piece, you get a boost of gamma in the brain, because there's just so many parts of the brain that have to work in harmony to produce music. These monks that are performing superhuman feats, their minds are have an unusually large amount of gamma. So in that respect, brainwave entrainment and energy practices go hand in hand. I use mine as a tool, more so than as a baseline for an energy practice, but it's a very effective tool. And using the sun and scale and using biometric devices, you could see what works for you.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Joe, for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me, John. I don't get the chance very often to talk brainwave entrainment for a whole hour. It's not a subject that comes up at the Thanksgiving dinner table.
There you are. Well, this was very informative and very helpful.
Great, thanks for having me. Maybe we can do it again sometime.
Excellent.
You can follow the Plutopia News Network at plutopia.io. On Facebook, go to @Plutopia News. On Twitter, it's @Plutopia. With John Lepkowski, I'm Scoop Sweeney. This is the Plutopia News Network, 20 minutes into the future.